Alrighty. So this came out, I think it was like last Wednesday. So it's been a few days. I've been kind of busy, weirdly enough, so I haven't really sat down and recorded this kind of talking about the new stuff. But there's some new hero talents. It is all of these hero talents here on the right side of the tree, which is interesting. And then we have the main changes are this class tree that we're going to look and kind of talk about a little bit. But let's start with Colossus. Decimator. Demolishes final strike, applies deep wounds to all targets at 100% effectiveness. Now, initially, you look at this and you go, well, I apply deep wounds through Colossus Smash, I apply deep wounds through Cleave, I mean, I apply it through Mortal Strike. This is kind of whatever, right? But remember, they actually kind of reworked how deep wounds works through arms now. Deep wounds is now applied through crit effects on Mortal Strike and Cleave, or through Execute. So your Decimator is going to apply a very hefty bleed on every target hit when you demolish. So it's actually a lot more impressive damage-wise than you initially consider. Also, with the new talent, with Field by Violence being Rend and Deep Wounds, I don't remember if it was that before. Here, we can actually just check real quick. Yeah, it was just Deep Wounds before. So with it being Rend and Deep Wounds, depending on the situation, you're going to get a bunch of DR from Dominance of the Colossus and heal through Field by Violence with this additional Deep Wounds damage, because Deep Wounds actually does like real damage, so that's actually pretty good. Cut to the bone. Mortal Strike, Shield Slam, critical strikes, and increase rend and deep wound damage by 50% for 8 seconds. This gives more cleaving Mortal Strikes additional value in AoE. When you have rend and deep wounds on everything in AoE, you'll be doing a ton more damage. And let's say you do something like at the start of a pack, you pop your stuff, you sweeping strikes, you mortal strike a couple times, mortal strikes and cleaves a couple times, and you get your Demolisher's Might up. You crit your Mortal Strike, and then you Decimator, and you apply Deep Wounds to everything. And Deep Wounds does a lot of damage relative to what it used to, because they reworked the Arms Mastery. So it's going to do 50% more damage. So it's going to do 300% AP damage. Like, that's pretty good for like AoE. That's actually pretty sizable for AoE, on top of just being a static bonus influence to your AoE damage, to your bleeds when things actually live. So that's pretty neat. Demolish is kind of Colossus is kind of weird, where even though you do have arterial bleed, which increases your bleed damage, or you have one against many. I don't know which one's going to be better depending on the flat damage, but with the amount of bleeds and the amount of damage that like deep wounds and rend could potentially be doing, arterial bleed might be pretty good in like extended fights in AoE. So we'll have to see how that tunes out. The robot will tell us what's right anyway. But then the final one, Demolish final hit grants 10% haste for 10 seconds and increases the critical strike chance of your next Mortal Strike or Shield Slam by 100%. Now we also have synergy there. So you are guaranteed to apply deep wounds to everything and then buff it by the next hit with your Colossus Smash. This I think was initially like, there's an artifact trait I think called Shattered Defense, where every single time you Colossus Smash, your next Mortal Strike had increased damage and crit chance and whatever. So, but in terms of the playstyle, regardless, having a way to guarantee your bonuses through Demolish, because since Demolish has a cast time as well, Demolish Mortal Strike, and then you have that full Deep Wounds bonus on everything with the Mortal Strike bonus going as with the Mortal Strike bleed increase as well. So that's actually pretty good. It works pretty well together. It also works hand in hand with the new Apex talents as well. Master of Warfare increases Mortal Strike and Cleave damage and crit. Heroic Strike is just an additional bonus. Reduce the cooldown of your Colossus Smash every time you use it. It's just pretty good. And Heroic Strike is also reducing the amount of armor, or increasing your armor penetration as well, so just increasing your damage even more on these targets. I'm going to be honest, from the outlook, like, the tree's a little jumbled, but there is tuning aside, but arms looks really, really good. Like, really, really good going into Midnight. It just based on design seems really powerful, and now Colossus looks really good. And let's look over at the other ones. Mountain Thane will primarily be for prot, I think. Avatar increases damage of Thunderclap by 50% and reduces cooldown by 50%. Here, one thing we actually want to have while looking at this is the protection tree, because there is a few notable things on there. Actually, if I remember, no. So this, I forgot that with the change, one of the things we lost is the torments, especially on Avatar. So Avatar is a choice node here, but the Avatar's choice node originally inside of the class tree was something called, it was like Storm something. I don't remember what it. We'll look at it live. It was initially there's Unstoppable Force. Increase the damage of Thunderclap and reduce the cooldown of Thunderclap. So that's what was here. However, they're adding that bonus because of how well it played with Mountain Thane into the class tree as this new side talent. So we're basically getting that talent here as Storm Surge. So that feels very good to play. Lightning Strike damage increased by 10% and crit damage by 10%. Whatever, it's just damage. And new talent, this one. During Avatar, Thunder Blast extends Avatar's duration by 2 seconds. This sounds very, very powerful. And it is very powerful. It is good. But the one thing to notice is we are losing our tier set, which gives us not only a refund of Thunder Blast, but increases the damage of the next Thunder Blast. The important part here being the refund. So we're not going to have as many refunds or as many Thunder Blasts as we do this season. So our Avatar uptime will be noticeably a little less. However, because of talents already within the protection tree, like Burst of Power, giving you a bunch of extra shield slams that will give you more Thunder Blast procs, and the Anger Management is reducing Avatar CD for Prot as well. Prot is going to have a pretty good uptime on Avatar, so it's just going to do a lot of additional bonus damage and have a longer damage window, while also reducing its damage the cooldown of its damage window through Anger Management. So Prot's probably looking to do still pretty decent damage, and I think Mountain Thane really fits well with Prot. These Colossus talents have some value. Right, like if you look at actually, it looks like they got rid of it. There was a talent, yeah, the talent right here, Fueled by Violence, gave you a lot of health back through Bleed, which could be pretty nice. Does it still exist? Violence. It does, actually. Okay. So both Prot and Colossus will still have, actually, what? Deep Wounds. Okay, so it's still... I wonder if you have to be talented into Deep Wounds to get the Deep Wounds effect from the Colossus Decimator. You probably will, but it'll be something worth picking up. So, that's actually kind of interesting, where Colossus is going to really have this big bleed thing going for it, for arms and Prot. With, you could take Bloodborne, Deep Wounds, you'll have Fueled by Violence, you'll be healing a ton. I don't know, they could both actually be pretty good. So, I mean, Prot's still probably looking quite good. Just its tuning and its tier set will probably really define how good it is. It still has a lot of its good execute talents. Although I think it lost its raw... Yeah, this was a spot where its raw execute damage used to be. So its execute isn't going to be as potent, I believe. But, let's see, execute... Yeah, so it lost the percentage execute damage, but it gained Deep Wounds. But Deep Wounds has that additional damage bonus affected by it. And you'll be able to spread Deep Wounds, and it'll do more. So there's a lot going for it here, actually. Execute still has this increased damage here as well through Thane. So honestly, I mean, Thane and Colossus are looking fairly good. Man, I've talked I've talked for 10 minutes on just these two hero talents and their potential. It's kind of interesting. But otherwise, I mean, it looks fine. More Avatar of the Storm. While you have Avatar active, you have more T-Claps. Like, it synergizes, it works well, it's thematic. I think they're good. The Colossus ones are kind of a little weirder, but I like them. And the Thane ones, I think, are very thematic, and they're just going to be pretty solid. Now, let's look at the Slayer ones, because we've been playing Slayer for a lot this season. And it's primarily been our raid talent, so... New talent. Okay, they actually, I forgot to mention, they did rework Slayer a little bit, so it is worth talking about here. Bladestorm puts you in a battle trance, gaining 15% haste for 8 seconds after you stop bladestorming, so that's pretty good, just more haste. Executioner's duration is increased by 6 seconds, so we'll need to be looking through this talent tree. Executioner. Ooh. So that's primarily these talents here, and these are the rework talents, so it's not the same as before. Every 2 strikes of Bladestorm, you automatically cast Mortal Strike or Bloodthirst at your target. With the talent change, we did actually lose Unhinged, which is a very fan-favorite talent, so they're adding Unhinged back here in the Slayer tree, which is very good and nice for the spec. So it's good to still have Unhinged, although you'll definitely feel it a little bit on arms, or on like Colossus arms, where you're not really able to have your Mortal Strikes auto-spend your Executioner's Precision stacks and that kind of thing. So this will still probably be the big single target hero talent. But here's the changes. So Slayer's Dominance, which was... So our base talent. Slayer Strikes now grant a stack of Executioner, increasing your execute damage by 3% for 12 seconds. Multiple stacks of Executioner may overlap. Show No Mercy, which is the one down here. Executioner also increases your execute critical chance and critical strike damage by 3% per stack. Unrelenting Onslaught has been updated. Using Execute causes you to both reduce the cooldown of Bladestorm and apply 1 stack of Overwhelm to your primary target for each stack of Executioner you have. And Executioner stacks can overlap. So every time we Slayer Strike, we get this Executioner effect. So it plays a little differently now. It's kind of weird, where we're still getting Sudden Death. Sudden Death can stack to 2 times, but I believe we have lost the... marked for execution debuff tracking style of play that they didn't like before. So now it just kind of plays itself, and you're just Slayer striking. Yeah, so now there's no debuff management or execute conditional stuff that you have to really think of. It just kind of plays itself. This is probably part of the simplification of the talent trees that they've been doing, and with the change to that, with the change to the UI, with a change to killing weak ores, right? They need to reduce the amount of, these are things you need to track, these are things you need to do. It's just the simplification of the game to start at a base level with what they're trying to do with the overall UI changes, right? So now it's just plug and play, but depending on, it's still probably going to be hasted proc per minute. Yeah, 7 procs per minute, so it's going to be hasted a little bit probably. But think about this as an execute phase, right? So let's say in execute phase, you have 2 stacks. You have 2 stacks of this new executioner buff. Executioners, you're increasing the crit and crit damage of execute. You're increasing the flat damage, and every time you execute, you're adding a stack of overwhelm to the target. So basically, you're upkeeping this buff, but the buff has also been changed to max 5 stacks. So now you're not really having to upkeep 10 stacks of this thing, and your Blade Storm is also still applying to this. So you'll go into a fight and have max stacks the moment you go. Because I think Blade Storm hit 6 times initially. I think it's like 6 times, something like that. So you will have your max stack going into the fight, going into your lust phase, that kind of thing. And then, let's say you have 2 stacks. Every time you execute, you're reducing Blade Storm by 6 seconds and applying Overwhelmed. And just so, through your general gameplay, in Execute, you're going to be Blade Storming more, your Unhinge is going to be casting, you're going to be doing all that stuff. But through your general play, depending on if they increase the amount of Slayer strikes you're actually hitting. I don't know if they changed the amount of the actual procs, because on the beta it says approximately 7. So it's about the same, I suppose. But it's definitely just a little more plug and play than what it was before. Something you don't really think about. If you can execute, you're going to want to execute. If you get sudden death procs, you're going to want to use sudden death, right? They just want you to be like, hey, if you proc, you want to press the button. Hey, if you're Mortal Strike, you want a Mortal Strike. You know, they want this stuff to be, I don't want to say ease of access, but with the changes they're making, it's what they want it to be, right? Or it's simpler. Okay, so now that we've talked about those, we have the class changes that we have to talk about. And there's some things that I actually really like in here. And that I'll go over. So new talent, Field Dressing. Healing received increased by 3%, and all self-healing is increased by 10%. Yo! Having actual, like, battle-scarred veteran warrior flavored talents in the tree that aren't directly tied to throughput? I'm cool with that. I like that. That's pretty good. New talent, Fearless. Cooldown of Berserker Rage is reduced by 50%, and Berserker Rage removes all movement impairing effects. Choice nodes with Berserker Shout. So I think this is a kind of an interesting, like, PvP talent kind of thing, where you can have group effect or you can have primary effect. It's going to make you a lot stronger against fears. The fact that it removes movement impairing as well is going to be pretty strong, I think, in PvP. Might even have applications potentially in PvE, although Slayer still does have this Relentless Pursuit talent that removes all movement impairing effects every 30 seconds, so it'll definitely allow you to stick to your targets, remove your snares, that kind of thing. But this definitely feels a little more like PvP kind of centric, so it's whatever. New talent, Javelier. Or Javelineer. Stormbolt, Shattering Throw, Wrecking Throw, and Champion Spear apply hamstring to all affected targets, reducing their movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds. I'll be honest, talent feels kind of weird, kind of nothing. I don't really know. Like I just talked about having like cool flavor, like cool utility talents is cool in the tree, but this just doesn't really seem that useful to me. I mean, in AoE, you're gonna still have like Thunderclaps and Blood and Thunder and stuff like that you're working towards. Like this is a 40% slow by itself if you do take Crackling Thunder as an additional. The other issue with this talent is it's located on this side of the tree, which isn't a problem, but it's also the Gatekeeper talent for Wrecking Throw or Shattering Throw, so it definitely feels something that's way more PvP centric, and it's also gating off your ability to deal with immunes or shields. So I don't really like that. I'd rather Javelineer be down here, and then you can have, like, you'd have your option for like Wrecking Throw or Shattering Throw, because there is definitely some times where you're dealing with shielded enemies in PvE that having Wrecking Throw, like Plexus Sentinel, is actually a really nice thing to have. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's a weird talent. It's kind of weird, and it's gatekeeping another talent. I don't really see too much use for it outside of maybe PvP, but more of the PvPers, cool. accidentally turn that on. No, I want to close out of that. Sorry. Champion Spear has been redesigned. Throw a spear at the location, chaining all enemies to the spear. Blah, 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 blah. While because it's the same shit as before, right? While the spear is active, activating this ability will cause you to leap to the spear, slamming down to deal physical damage to all targets. All damage dealt reduced beyond 5, generating 10 rage. The previous iteration was an experiment to see if the softer version of a pull-on effect would be useful. We didn't feel that it was successful, so we're trying another approach to Champion Spear that leans into the warrior's natural mobility and providing a new tool for engagement and gap closing. This is what it looks like, brought to you by Arkham Tyros. And then you just hit the button again to, like, leap to the target. I mean, like... Nobody likes Champion Spear, man. like they keep trying to make it work, and like maybe it's kind of cool in PvP, and maybe if you like spear somebody and get knocked away, you can jump back to it, like it's kind of PvP kind of thing. But like, I don't know. Condemn, Ancient Aftershock. I mean, maybe not Banner, but if you want to keep a Shadowlands ability in there, I think people would really rather have Ancient Aftershock. I think it's way cooler, but it's not necessarily like warrior-centric because it's Night Fae. Honestly, I'd rather they just remove Champion Spear altogether, and who cares about Shadowlands, and just like put something new in there that's interesting. Because maybe it does so much damage that you take it, but as we'll see in a second, the bottom of the tree is kind of a nightmare right now. So taking Champion Spear isn't really going to be I just don't see us being able to take this thing, man. I don't know what... The bottom of the tree is a mess. Whatever they're doing to this thing is not great. And the only reason anyone will ever take this is if it does so much damage that you're just not going to take anything else. Like, I don't know. It just feels weird. And even if you're using it for damage, like, I don't ever see a world... I mean, there can maybe be some tech where, like, if you need to get to that side of the boss, but you in your cooldowns, you could Champion Spear the far side of the boss and then, like, use it to leap over there, but you probably already have your leap to get over there, and then Evokers can just give you another leap anyway. Your Time Spiral just... I don't know, man. I don't really see... I don't understand why they're so attached to Champion Spear and what they're trying to do with it. It has been disliked since they brought it back. It has not been enjoyed or liked through the entirety of Dragonflight. It has not been enjoyed or liked through the entirety of the War Within. There is some play of Champion Spear because Roar is so bad damage-wise on, like, a Raz early on as, like, kind of a fake Ursouls kind of thing. Like, I don't know, man. It ain't doing it for me. Champion Spear isn't cool. I don't like it. I don't care about it as a player, as a warrior. It just kind of needs to go away. I just don't see this thing being effective and cool. And legitimately, maybe it just goes away and we don't get anything extra back. And I'm totally fine with that because I just don't like it. I just don't see it. Updated Intimidating Shout. Again, enemies other than the primary target are no longer feared in place but flee from the warrior. However, their movement is slowed by 70%. Now on a choice node with Piercing Howl. So it is now here between Intimidating and Piercing Howl. However, one thing that is very odd with this decision is originally the change to Piercing Howl was that you would use it and it would disorient all the enemies. So it'd be a really good stop. But with the changes that they've made and how much more powerful stops will be in PvE, stuns and fears and knocks and all that kind of stuff will no longer be DRable in a PvE scenario. So Shockwave is just going to be better almost all the time unless you have to stop multiple times in a row, which when you're on a choice node with Piercing Howl gives your team move speed and slows the enemy. That move speed effect on Piercing Howl every 30 seconds, that is just gas. That is so good. Piercing Howl is so good, man. So, like, I don't know. I don't really see a reason for them to make Intimidating Shout worse. And the other weird thing about it is in a PvP scenario, that movement speed reduction is actually kind of worse. Because what you really want to use Intimidating Shout for is after people pop their trinkets, you want to be able to fear them, so you're either spreading their team out or you're isolating someone from somebody else. So like if you're fighting a DPS and you fear the healer off, the healer runs the other direction. But if the healer's running the other direction, but he's snared for 70% the whole duration, he's not really going away from you. He's not really going where you want him to go. So putting the snare effect on Intimidating Shout, I don't really see a point to it, and I feel like it actually makes the ability worse for its intended use primarily in PvP, and the snare effect seems pretty pointless in PvE as well, because most of the time you're going to break that fear effect immediately through the amount of damage you deal, so the snare is meaningless anyway. So I feel like they need to, if they want Intimidating Shout like that, they need to just take the fear part. They need to take the movement speed reduction away from it and just have it do the same fear, and it just has a higher break threshold or something. It could be a kind of a problem in PvE where if you're like spreading out a bunch of mobs, maybe, because now Intimidating Shout's also finally uncapped. It used to be capped at 5 targets, so useless in most dungeons. But I mean, we have the dev notes here. We're experimenting with many of Warrior's iconic shouts to give them more utility in more situations. Here we're adding a snare to make it less risky to use in dungeon and open world content, and positioning it against Piercing Howl with a similar snare, but a movement speed buff for allies. We're interesting to see what players come up with these new abilities. I think the snare is a mistake. I don't think it's good. You probably just need to revert it back to no snare, because in a PvP scenario, it is just 1,000% worse. Because even though you might actually, even though it keeps people closer to the cleave, and even if it doesn't break, they're going to be way closer to the combat, and they're going to be within range of healing somebody, where that extra global of the healer having to walk in range to heal someone could be the difference in PvP. So I don't know. I think the move speed slow on Intimidating Shout just probably needs to go away. Where it's placed, I think it's fine, but I don't think it's too worth it. Honed Reflexes now has an additional effect. Successfully interrupting an enemy increases the damage you deal to them by 5% for 10 seconds. Originally, this is just in the tree here as concussive blows. This doesn't give you... This still gives you, on the new tree, the CDR reduction in pummel. But so it basically puts... Or it basically takes concussive blows and puts it into Honed Reflexes, as well as they bump this up from 5% to 10% with the new effect as well. So Honed Reflex is actually pretty good. I think it's a pretty worthwhile talent to take, because it also reduces your defenses, which is kind of invaluable depending on the situation. So Honed Reflex is now good. Updated Battlefield Commander. Rallying Cry increases the health gain by an additional 2% and its duration by 3 seconds. No longer grants movement speed or leech. So previously it did grant movement speed and leech, but I mean, this makes Rally a 12% max health for 13 seconds. This is actually really powerful. On top of that, Battlefield Commander also gives you an additional 3% damage from your battle shout. Maybe not damage flat, but 3% attack power from your battle shout. So Battlefield Commander is going to be a very, very valuable raid tool, even outside of the dead damage it brings you. Buffing Rally like that is pretty significant, as well as something like increasing the radius of Piercing Howl to 24 yards instead of the 12 means you have way better coverage to give your teammates move speed in raid as well. So it's honestly pretty good. Like, this talent is really good. And that's also with the resonant voice. So Rallying Cry is going to last quite a while and be very effective. So it'll be much more taking of its 3-minute cooldown compared to other things. So Rally will be quite strong. The only problem is where it's placed in the tree. And once again, we'll get to that after we go through the rest of the notes. Barbaric training has been updated. Slam, Whirlwind, and Thunderclap damage increased by 10% was 20, and critical strike damage by 5% was 10. Now a 2-point talent. So basically, it is just 2 points instead of 1 point, and there's a problem. We'll get to it. We'll get to the problem. They removed Blood and Thunder and just baked it into Rend. Taking a talent point that just makes Rend apply on T-Clap was just kind of stupid. So they're just like, yeah, we're putting Blood and Thunder into Thunderclap. So T-Clap, if you have Rend talented, will just automatically spread Rend. So that's fine. Also, something that is interesting is it doesn't spread it evenly. I believe that... Excuse me. I believe the way it works is it kind of like it always hits your main target and then it spreads the remaining 4 Rens out. So you're not getting an even 5 spread every time you T-Clap. You're getting a 4 spread. So it's decent, but it's still not as valuable. But now that it's baked into T-Clap initially, anything that's using T-Clap will spread Rend better. That way, maybe you'll still... But the thing that's also weird is Rend is still only applying... T-Clap is only applying Rend to 5 targets. When if you just hit the Rend button anyway, Rend is applying Rend to literally everything. So outside of a situation where maybe you're playing like Mountain Thane Prout Warrior, pressing Rend is probably just going to be better initially, and then maybe Mountain Thane Prout Warrior will still press Rend, and then the T-Claps it sends and T-Blast will just upkeep it on targets instead of applying. I don't really know. If it's very weird. This iteration of Rend is quite strange. Crushing Force is now also a 2-point talent. It has been moved. Talent tree has been updated. We're continuing to iterate on the warrior tree, aiming to add more utility to the warrior tree and allow for different playstyles and builds for different types of content. Great idea. Things we've asked for. Implementation's not great right now. Once again, Blood and Thunder. Rend is iconic, Rend being added is active, even though he used Thunderclap. The previous iteration of choice between Rend and Blood of Thunder deemed it unnecessarily confusing, so we're simplifying things. If Protection and Mountain Thane Warriors or any other want to use Rend, they simply take Rend and continue using Thunderclap, whereas other specs have access to AoE Rend without needing to invest in Thunderclap or incorporate it into the rotations with the removal of Blood and Thunder. They also remove Cacophonous Roar, Concussive Blows, which was baked into Honed Instincts. Death Strikes was the talent that actually increased your auto attack damage, so they got rid of that. And then Menace was the other... I think that was the knockback where you hit your target, but it knocked everything else back from your Intimidating Shout, so that's gone as well. And then for Fury, Bloodborne no longer requires Bloodthirst to critically strike. All targets hit by Bloodthirst will take an additional damage from your bleeds. This sounds good on paper, but one of the problems with this is if you're attacking mobs within a pack and you Whirlwind and then Bloodthirst, you're only hitting 5 mobs with your Bloodthirst. And because it's a Whirlwind cleave, the realistic chance of you actually being able to decide what mobs are being hit by your Bloodthirst to apply this additional damage bonus through bleeds is really, really low. So you're going to end up like multi-hitting the same mobs, and you're not really going to spread that buff effect out. I really didn't mind that if you crit, you just did 20% more bleed damage for 8 seconds, and the rest of your kit kind of synergized and gave you crit for that. I don't really mind that. I thought it was okay, and it went along with the current crit synergies of their Apex talents as well. But this iteration seems very weird. Honestly, if they want Bloodborne to do this, they should just be like, I don't know, every two targets hit by Bloodthirst give you Bloodborne, which gives you 20% additional damage from your bleeds for 8 seconds. So you're guaranteed to have it in AoE at all times, basically. And in single target, Bloodthirst generally has a 4.5 or a lower cooldown with haste. So in single target, when you're hitting Bloodthirst on cooldown, you'll just have this bonus anyway, right? If you're hitting Bloodthirst on cooldown, I don't know. I feel like it'd be better if it was just, hey, your bleeds deal 20% more damage if you're just hitting Bloodthirst all the time, right? Like, that just makes sense to me. And it works better with Rend, and you don't have to worry about trying to, like, min-max spread cleave. I mean, maybe if Bloodthirst cleaves have smart targeting, so you put the Bloodborne buff on more targets. But that's not how the ability works, because it's the 5 closest targets to where you are currently positioned as a player through Whirlwind. Like, I don't know. It's very weird. I think this iteration's kind of a stinker. I think it should just be every 2 Bloodthirst hit up gives you the buff, and then you just will have the buff. And it works the same. It works in AoE, and you don't have to, like, maintenance buff on a bunch of multi-targets or try and, like, tab target through. If you're trying to mimic, it just seems dumb. I think they should probably change how that works again. It just, I don't think it's there yet. Okay, well, we haven't even talked about the talent tree. But that's okay, because the talent tree is mainly problematic in a very specific way. And it's that, oh my god, how many... let's talk about the good first. Let's talk about this upper half, right? Let's talk about the good first. In this upper echelon, right, you'll notice I'm able to take most of everything, and then I have flex point here, depending whether or not I want Stormbolt, but I still want Hound Reflex, I have flex point here. You can take the Intervene or Interpose talents, that is like a kind of terrible Blessing of Sacrifice, but does give you another dash technically, so it's kind of weird. Like, they're like, we have like 3 or 4, like, in this talent tree, we have like 1, 2, 3, well, I guess not 3, but we technically have like 4 flexible points, where if we put these points in, then we can go through the tree and put all our stuff in, right? We have these 2-point gate nodes at the top of tier 3, but the problem is this tier 3 node altogether. Because having these flex points for all of these different things that we could get and take is nice. And it is something we've asked for, so we have flexible points for Crackling Thunder for better T-clap radius, Field Dressing, which is honestly something I really like. I wish Field Dressing was here and then Pain and Gain was below it, but whatever. Overwhelming Rage, which will be nice. However, one thing they did also do is reduce the amount of rage generation Fury is getting in its cooldowns as well. So having that extra 30 rage will probably be more of a nicety instead of a necessity. But in PvP, you won't need to take stuff like this. So you can take things like Javelineer or like Wrecking Throw. So I think this top part of the tree is actually pretty good. I think this is decent. I like where it's at. I don't really have many problems with the top of this tree. The problem is this bottom section right here, and the main culprit is all of these 2-point nodes. We have 2-point node, 2-point node, 2-point node, 2. We have 10 points. So right now, we have 11 points to put in the bottom of our tree, right? We have 11 points to use, and 10 of those 11 points are within 5 separate nodes that are all throughput. All of these nodes are throughput, by the way, and they're all 2-pointers. Crushing Force and Barbaric Training were already were 1-point nodes before, but they got brought down here and put in 2-point nodes. They re-added Shockwave to the tier 3 section of the tree where all of this throughput is, which is another big mistake. Shockwave needs to be up here in this tier 2 section of the talent tree somewhere. Maybe you can reshuffle the positions of the stuff a little bit. I don't know. Shockwave was already problematic as a tier 3 talent in Dragonflight, and they moved it back up to the tier 2, tier 1 area because they wanted people to have actual better access to it. It's right here. But now with the new thing, it's back in tier 3. However, it is kind of viable because now that in PvE situations, Shockwave is no longer DRable to being unusable. If you could play something like Colossus in if you play something like Colossus and Mythic Plus, it now means that you are guaranteed in a pack of mobs so it's originally 40. You can go to 35, and then if you get 3 targets, it goes down to 20. You can have a 20-second non-DRable AoE stop, which is, if you talent 2 points into it, is really, really, really strong. You probably won't take this node, mainly because the talent point situation down here is really bad. But like, that's really good, really, really good. In fact, but it probably should still be in this part of the tree, or they just need to really reduce the points down here, because we have 2 2-point nodes gating 2 throughput 2-point nodes, which are also gating another 2 throughput 2-point nodes. And then if we want our specialization, which is just a flat damage bonus, we're kind of required to take Shockwave, or you'll take like Retaliation maybe if you're playing tank, but even then you'll probably still take Shockwave. So we have two 2-point 2-point nodes that are gatekeeping each other. You have Shockwave, where then your flat damage increase is being gatekept. And then you have to figure out how you're going to get Battlefield Commander and Anger Management, which are both on opposite sides of the tree. Like, this is so weird to me, because it feels like this side of the tree is mainly focused towards like prot and defensiveness and that kind of thing. And then this side is your like active mitigation, or it's like your active damage dealing abilities and bonus damage and stuff like that. It really feels like Last Stand should be over here. Battlefield Commander should be over here, meaning you might not take Wild Strikes, but it's still really good and still very, very good for arms, especially when you want to get as much rage generation as possible. But even then, like, if we're looking at this talent tree and we want the easiest way to get Anger Management, okay, we got Anger Management. Okay, we need Dual Wield Specialization because it's just flat. Okay, we need Crushing Force because we're not going to take Retaliation. Crushing Force also increases the main damage of our single target abilities, being Mortal Strike and Bloodthirst. So this is a very, very strong talent for both single target. So let's put 2 points into here, and then we have this. But then the other problem is we're completely missing Barbaric Training, which was previously a T2 talent node. So almost all of our, like, you see all of this outside of like Rend, almost all of our talent tree's throughput is in the bottom of our tree. And then we can't take something like Barbaric Training. However, here's where I think there is a possibility, right? I see Barbaric Training and I go, this is an AoE talent, this is a single target talent. So if there's a situation where you could maybe go like this instead, and it's like, okay, this is how I'm building AoE, and this is how and then you go, this is how I'm building single target, right? You could do that. But the problem I have with it is Barbaric Training also has Slam associated with it, and that is a problem for arms specifically. Slam turns into Heroic Strike. Slam, do we even have the value of Slam baseline? Like if we go Slam. Okay, there's a lot of different versions of Slam. I'm gonna assume we're going off of this Slam, right? 303% attack power. Heroic Strike is 600% attack power, and it inherits Slam's bonuses through things like Fervor of Battle. This would increase it from 600 to 660 through Barbaric Training, through 10% amp to that. Heroic Strike's going to do a lot of damage, so Arms is actually losing out way more here, where it's going to be losing single target throughput, and you have basically no choice to take it, because obviously Mortal Strike's going to do more damage, but you're losing that single target throughput here, and it's just really, really, really problematic. This part of the tree, we do not need 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. We don't need 14 talent points worth of 2 talent point blocking talent points in this section of the tree alone. We just don't. These things need to be Crushing Force and Barbaric need to go back to 1 point talents. I think this is just simply a mistake. Crushing Force and Barbaric Training are 2 talent point nodes. Really a mistake. Having these 2 talent point nodes is actually very, very important as well, because it would allow us to take Crushing Force, it would allow us to take Barbaric Training, and then if we consider us having both of these as well, then it allows us to have some options down here, right? You could get Rumbling Earth, you could get Last Stand, you could get maybe Champion Spear. If you're playing tank, that would allow you to get something like Last Stand and Retaliate, while also having your Anger Management and Battlefield Commander. I just don't know why these things are 2 point nodes. If these 2 were just 1 point nodes again, like they really should be, it opens up 2 new talent points in the bottom of this tree, and it allows you to take maybe some offensive options, defensive options, on top of your feeling basically mandatory options in Battlefield Commander and Anger Management. But even then, if you wanted to lose a little bit of damage, like if Battlefield Commander wasn't that great for you in like a Mythic Plus situation, then you could maybe have Champion Spear as a little bit additional damage, but utility. You could have Last Stand just in case for those really pinch moments. I don't really know how good Last Stand is going to be. It really depends on the damage intake of the game. For Prot, it'll probably have okay-ish value, but for Warrior, for DPS Warrior, most things, especially in Mythic Raid, if you're around 30 to 40% health and you're about to take a hit from an AoE mechanic, most of those mechanics aren't rot damage. They're just spike flat damage. So unless a lot of things that they're adding are rot damage, Last Stand isn't really going to come into play or help you literally at all. Same thing with Kill or Be Killed. It's a nice flavor, especially a callback to the Last Stand being one of the primary defensive abilities that warriors, including DPS warriors, would take, where you could taunt Last Stand and Shield Wall as a DPS warrior and potentially save your raid. But the bottom of this tree has too many 2 point nodes. We simply can't take things that we want. This needs to be a 1 pointer. This needs to be a 1 pointer. And even if these were 1 pointers, it would allow you to make your way around the tree without having to take something like Shockwave if you didn't want it, if you didn't need it, even though you're probably really going to want to take it. I just really think that these 2 point nodes here, or even these 2 point nodes here, if you wanted to keep these as 2 points, are just so bad. It is having basically all of our throughput in this section of the tree right here, and then not allowing us to take it because we're capped off on the T3 talents, I think is just bad. And if it was, like I said, if it was a flat choice between AoE and single target, and you could kind of path around it, and you could take either AoE or single target, that's one thing, right? Because that's technically a different option. But the problem being, mainly for me, is that because Slam, and so, I mean, Slam for any arm spec, because of Heroic Strike being the Apex talents, and then Thunderclap being basically required for Prot Warrior, so then Prot Warrior doesn't really get to take the Shield Slam talents, potentially, either, because if you're playing Thane, you're really going to want it. So, I don't know. It's just really weird. Most of this tree is actually pretty good. It gives us we have a lot of bonus talents early on in the tree. We're allowed to take a lot of potentially interesting choices, removing throughput, having pretty decent pathing to anything we would want, even if these options seem weird to me, but like, these are PvP options that you can still take if you do not need these additional slight bonus talents, so they might be more valuable for PvP, right? Like, there's a lot of options here, and I think this top of the hero talent is this class tree is actually pretty good, but the amount of 2-point nodes is just killing it down here and reducing these back to 1-pointers and allowing us to have, once again, the flexibility of Rumbling Earth or Champion Spear or Last Stand, depending on the situation, would just feel so good and be very nice. And then we would still have the option to flex things around and take different things, and even have more skill point burden talents like Mountain Thane, which really would still want to take T-Clap, want to take Rend, want to take these abilities, would still have the flexible points to take most of what they wanted, as well as getting the talents they needed. It's just as part of the tree, man. Okay. Alright, I'll be honest. I didn't expect to yap for 50 minutes just about these changes here, about these small changes here. I didn't really expect to, but I got going, and here we are. So, hope you enjoy the second monitor content as you hear my voice in the side of your ear, like a little, like, bumblebee. I don't want to say fly, because flies are annoying, but bumblebees, they can kind of freak you out. But if you know it's just a chill bumblebee, you're like, you bumblebee, you're all right. You're all right, bumblebee. You hang out with the flowers, you cross-pollinate, you help life grow. You know what, bumblebee? You're cool. Wasps and hornets? You suck. You die. You suck, you die. Bumblebees? You're chilling. Bumblebees are the butterflies, or the bumblebees are like the moths, you know, where they're not as beautiful as the butterfly, but you know, they're there. Moths are cool. They're just kind of doing their thing. Sometimes I guess they eat your clothes if you let them into your clothes, but I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. I've yapped for far too long. It is now midnight, so I'm going to cut the video. Hope you enjoy, and let me know what you think, because I really like this. Honestly, weirdly enough, I think field dressing is actually one of my favorite thematic talents as a warrior. I like it a lot, and I like the return to shouts. I think piercing howl's super sick. The short CD movement speed is so good. It's so cool. I really like what they're doing here. We do have problems in the class tree, but I don't think they've really addressed those just yet. We'll hopefully get to them. We'll talk about it again, but I'm liking what I see so far. Just please, God, back to 1-point nodes. Please, these do not need to be 2-point nodes. And then the rest of this tree just feels good, and you have options. Okay, that's it for me. Bye-bye.